According to Bison Trails, over 80% of central banks around the world are in the process of developing CBDCs. A few central banks have already rolled out their CBDCs, and many others are moments away from doing the same. CBDC development has accelerated over the past year, and many people are starting to wonder what effect this could have on the crypto market. Today, I'm going to explain what central bank digital currencies are, examine a few countries that are on the cusp of rolling out their CBDCs, and which cryptocurrencies CBDCs are going to send to the moon. I know you're eager to start, but going any further without a disclaimer wouldn't be smart. Financial advice is not what I do, so if that's what you're looking for, I suggest calling a financial advisor near you. Everything here is just to help grow your brain, and if you're wondering what's going on, allow me to explain. My name is Guy, and I think crypto is as good as pizza pie. The Coin Bureau is an all-you-can-eat buffet of quality crypto content. Coins, tokens, news, reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff I haven't covered yet. If you want to get these videos while they're fresh, subscribing to the channel and pinging that notification bell is the way to do it best. Today's menu can be seen in the timestamps below. You can skip ahead to your favorite meals or watch the whole way through like a true bro. Make sure to say grace, because we're about to dig into the CBDC race. If you have no idea what CBDCs are, here's a quick rundown. CBDC is short for Central Bank Digital Currency, or as I like to call it, the ultimate shitcoin. This is because CBDCs are just digital fiat currencies that are issued and controlled by a country's central bank. Currently, each bank has its own database of transaction histories for its clients. Every time you buy something with your debit or credit card, the money you spend gets credited to someone else's account, be it an individual or institution. Even though the payment seems instant for you and shows up as instant in your mobile banking app, it can take days for the payment to settle behind the scenes, as the banks involved exchange information about their clients' transaction histories. Every so often, banks will give an overview of their client holdings to the central bank for regulatory reasons that I won't get into here. The main takeaway is that this setup is not all that efficient. It also leaves lots of room for error and, shall we say, intentional mistakes. CBDCs are different in that they exist on a blockchain, which is basically just a shared database that cannot be modified without consensus from certain participants that are a part of the shared database. Rather than have each bank store the transaction histories of its clients on its own database, every bank would instead store this information on a CBDC blockchain. This CBDC blockchain is controlled by the central bank, which has the authority to make changes to transaction histories and the supply of the currency itself. Scary stuff, I know. Now, if you're wondering how CBDCs are different from cryptocurrencies, the answers are centralization, privacy, and volatility. Even though cryptocurrencies also use blockchains to keep track of transactions, their blockchains cannot be modified by any single entity. It requires the consensus of hundreds, sometimes thousands of participants. More importantly, you do not need to provide any personal information to use a cryptocurrency. This means that your identity remains private whenever you're making transactions. That's assuming nobody's figured out which wallet address belongs to you, of course. Now, the biggest difference between CBDCs and cryptocurrencies is that CBDCs are pegged to the price of whatever fiat currency they represent, whereas cryptocurrencies fluctuate in value depending on market demand. This means that you won't get rich from investing in CBDCs, as some scam ads on Facebook would lead you to believe. You can learn more about CBDCs and how they're different from cryptocurrencies by watching my first video about them, and the link is up there in the top right. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, central banks around the world have been, quote, exploring CBDCs since as early as 2014. A handful of countries, such as the Bahamas, have already deployed their CBDCs, and a few others, such as China, are in the advanced stages of testing. Most countries are still in the testing stage, and here's where some of those late bloomers stand. Turkey has been planning a digital Lira since 2019 and should have begun testing its CBDC in the first half of this year. However, no news has come out about that yet. It's also not known which blockchain Turkey will choose for its CBDC. Now, Turkey's primary motivation for creating a central bank digital currency is the insane amount of inflation the lira has experienced in recent years. This has forced many Turks to turn to cryptocurrency payments, which the Turkish government unsurprisingly banned a few months back. Ukraine is also pursuing a CBDC because of inflation, and its central bank has been researching a digital hryvnia since 2017. The Ukrainian government announced earlier this year that it had partnered with the Stellar Foundation to develop its CBDC, though it appears they will not be deploying it on Stellar's public blockchain. Rather than clamp down on cryptocurrencies, Ukraine has been quite friendly towards the asset class. This is not surprising, given that Ukraine was ranked as the country with the highest crypto adoption in 2020 by Chainalysis. Fun fact, one of Ukraine's youngest politicians is a Monero millionaire. I don't know why I would disclose that, but whatever floats your boat. Although there hasn't been much CBDC development in Ukraine as of late, it did recently pass a law which puts CBDCs on a par with cash in the country. This suggests to me that we will see a Ukrainian CBDC in the next few years. Another pro-crypto country that's been pursuing a CBDC is South Korea. That was a joke, by the way. South Korea's central bank has been considering a digital yuan since 2018, and this consideration turned to action in 2020 when China began rolling out its CBDC. As reported by CoinDesk, South Korea is not looking to rush its CBDC development, and it sounds like it's planning on following America's lead in lockstep. Even so, the Bank of Korea recently announced that it is officially looking for a tech company to help test its CBDC this summer. The prime candidate seems to be Clayton, an enterprise-oriented clone of Ethereum that recently teamed up with Consensus to create a permissioned version of its blockchain for South Korea's CBDC trials. Now, for those who don't know, Clayton is a creation of Kakao, one of the largest South Korean tech companies, which has a monopoly on many services, including messaging, taxi services, and even internet banking. You can learn more about Clayton by watching my in-depth video about it. Link is in the top right, as usual. Anyways, as I implied moments ago, South Korea has not been the kindest to cryptocurrencies. This hasn't dissuaded its citizenry from going crazy for crypto, though, and many quality crypto projects have come out of South Korea as a result. Israel is another country that has been exploring a CBDC. The Bank of Israel began researching a digital shekel back in 2017 and has flip-flopped on its development, to say the least. However, in May this year, the Bank of Israel suddenly revealed its definitive plans to issue a CBDC. It only took a month for it to begin testing its tech, and it seems like it's chosen Ethereum as its blockchain of choice. Before you get too excited, it's important to note that Israel is using a permissioned version of Ethereum for its CBDC trials, which apparently includes some NFT shenanigans. Bank of Israel's president believes it will take at least 5 years for the digital shekel to enter circulation in the country, and the focus at the outset will be on cross-border payments. Although Israel hasn't been too tough on crypto, Bank of Israel's president recently had this to say about Bitcoin. Quote, "Bitcoin is not a payment system, and it is not a currency. In the best situation, it is a financial asset, and in the worst case, it is a pyramid scam." I, for one, would argue that fiat is the real scam, and you can find out why by watching my video about that using the link up in the top right. The European Union is also looking to develop a digital euro. This is a recent development given that the European Central Bank only jumped on the CBDC bandwagon late last fall. That said, many countries within Europe have been playing around with CBDC technology for a few years, namely France, Switzerland, Sweden, and Norway. It seems that Europe's central bank has been taking note of these developments because it has already begun testing its CBDC technology on Ethereum, at least according to French officials. The EU will also be unveiling a dystopian digital wallet for its CBDC within the next year, and research by a clever fan of the Coin Bureau reveals that Cardano's IOHK is one of the companies it's tapped up to help with this. I'll leave a link to this fine fellow and his research report in the video description if you're interested in learning more about that. What's odd is that even though the EU's digital wallet will be rolling out within a year, the president of the European Central Bank has noted that it will probably be 4 to 5 years before we see the CBDC out and about. While Europe's regulators haven't been too hard on cryptocurrency, they've definitely had their fair share of concerns when it comes to US dollar stablecoins, which they see as being a threat to the euro. Funnily enough, the United States is in the same boat for a similar reason. The United States is also looking to create a CBDC. It's not clear when its digital dollar intention began to materialize. Some say that the US Federal Reserve was motivated by Facebook's Lira, a global digital currency initiative that was shot down by regulators in 2019, not long after its announcement. This makes sense given that early 2020 is when the Fed really started to put CBDCs on its list of priorities. A digital dollar has moved to the top of that list because of China's own CBDC development, turning Jay Powell's initial attitude of "we're not rushing" to "we will announce our action plan this summer," within the span of a few weeks. Digital dollar pilots are already underway by private companies, and I reckon it's probable that Circle's USDC is also engaging in a not-so-subtle pilot in cryptocurrency right now. The real question is which cryptocurrency blockchain the United States could tap for its CBDC, and the evidence points to Algorand. This is because Algorand was created by award-winning computer scientist and MIT professor Silvio Micali, and MIT happens to be the university the Fed has partnered with to develop its CBDC technologies. Now, you can learn more about Algorand by watching my most recent video about it, and you already know where to find that link. Yep, top right. As you all know, the United States is a pretty crypto-friendly place. I reckon the government has every incentive to facilitate the free market competition that creates the sorts of powerful technologies it's looking for. In terms of when we can expect to see a USD CBDC, it seems it will be no sooner than 2022. This is because the United States is currently developing a, quote, post-quantum cryptography standard to protect its digital dollar against cyber attacks by foreign nations. I'll leave a link to an article about that in the description if you're interested, and I recommend checking it out if you have the time. The last CBDC country I want to cover today is China, and that's for obvious reasons. As I mentioned earlier, China is in the later stages of testing its digital yuan, and this is likely because China was the first to begin working on a CBDC back in 2014. What's interesting is that China's motivation for creating a digital yuan stems from the dominance of the tech giants within the country, which have effectively taken over the payments industry. The Chinese government also wants to have the ability to see every transaction to ensure no illicit activity is taking place. A classic justification, to say the least. To motivate its citizens to adopt the digital yuan, China's central bank has allocated millions of dollars towards lotteries and giveaways. Merchants and services in select cities across the country have also been fitted to accept the digital yuan, which is expected to be the currency of choice during the Winter Olympics in Beijing in 2022. According to Reuters, China's digital yuan does not use a blockchain, which begs the question of whether it counts as a central bank digital currency. Then again, there's not much difference between a centralized blockchain and a database, and a centralized blockchain is what every central bank is planning on using for its CBDC. But I digress. You can't really have failed to notice that China has been cracking down on cryptocurrencies like mad over the last few months. It's likely that this is being done to facilitate the rollout of the digital yuan, which could be finished as early as 2022. You can learn more about China's recent crypto crackdowns by using that handy link up there in the top right. So, what do all these CBDC countries have in common? Well, for starters, all their currencies have been losing value for one reason or another, mostly because of money printing. A CBDC is a convenient way for central banks to get a grip on their monetary policies, as it will allow them to both issue and destroy circulating currencies to manage inflation and deflation. It's no coincidence that most countries began working on their CBDCs after the last crypto bull market. However, it seems that most of them didn't really take things that seriously until stablecoins started growing and other CBDCs started rolling out. This ties into another curious commonality, and that's that smaller countries are further along in their CBDC development than larger ones. This could just be to the larger amounts of paperwork and bureaucracy of bigger governments, but I reckon it's more likely that small countries know their fiat currencies are more fragile. Having a CBDC in place before global superpowers is an easy way for a small country to protect its currency from manipulation or subversion by foreign currencies. It's not just small countries that are feeling the heat either. It's quite clear that the United States is concerned about the dollar losing its reserve currency status because of China's CBDC developments. Even so, the stakes are high for countries to get it right with their CBDCs. If they move too quickly and make a mistake, it would be a field day for their foreign currency competitors. This is why most CBDCs won't be rolling out for at least another 3 to 5 years, and that means we might be able to squeeze in one more cryptocurrency bull market before they shut it all down. Now, in all seriousness, it's very unlikely that CBDCs will kill crypto, and this is for one reason: innovation. As I've long suspected, central banks around the world are turning to cryptocurrency companies to host their CBDCs. This is logical, given that cryptocurrency is on the bleeding edge of digital payments, and there is no centralized entity that could possibly hope to compete. The unfortunate thing is that central banks will almost certainly use permissioned versions of all these cryptocurrency blockchains, meaning it will have zero effect on the price of their respective coins or tokens. This won't stop speculative pumps from happening as all these CBDCs roll out, however. The crypto market will still be there when this happens, but I don't think governments will be too keen on allowing us to use it for payment. As the Bank of France's governor recently said, though, the clock is ticking for central banks. At the pace they're developing their CBDCs, they'll have no other option but to adopt Bitcoin to stay relevant. So, if you enjoyed today's video, give us both a dopamine hit by giving that like button a click. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and ping that notification bell so you know when to tune in next. While you wait for my next flick to hit the tube, you can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for hot takes, memes, and news. If you join my free Telegram channel, you'll get all the daily crypto market updates you crave, and subscribing to my weekly newsletter will give you the knowledge you need to stop being a wage slave. If you want to let the world know you're crazy about crypto, get your hands on some amazing crypto merch, courtesy of the Coin Bureau. Links to all of these resources and more are waiting for you in the description down below. That's all for today, my friends. I've got a dash. Keep hodling your crypto, and remember that fiat is trash.